Hey.
Hello and welcome to the Process of a Profit podcast. My name is Jack Fleming, a business, marketing, and entrepreneurship podcast. I like to cover everything because I feel like I do everything. We're here today with Eddie Irvin. I'm
That's
terrible
it.
at pronouncing names, and so I
100,
second guess myself every
You
single
got it.
time.
That's
And
right,
I
buddy.
feel bad too because we've been on Zoom calls before. But I just haven't said your last name, I guess, quite yet.
Yeah, there's Irvine, Irving, Irwin. So you got it right. Irvin. That's it.
Sweet. Well, again, just to let everyone know that this podcast is sponsored by Entre. I'm pulling up what I gotta say. Podcast is brought to you by Entre, a professional network built for entrepreneurs, investors, creators, and freelancers. You can easily create content, grow your network, and meet new like-minded people in live rooms and events on the app. All listeners can sign up for free and also get upgraded to Entre Pro, which gives you access to over 50,000 deals and discounts with over 100 partners. When you sign up on Join Entre, make sure to go to entre.link/Jack, and you can get upgraded to a pro account. Make sure to follow me on there at Jack Does Marketing. I'm at Jack Does Marketing on most social media accounts. But that's also how we met. We were in I guess it was a room.
They were testing
And
the rooms feature, and you happened to pop in. That's where we connected.
I guess they were doing a test. I thought it was something like software related, and I'm just gonna stop by. But yeah, so we basically met on Entre, which is pretty cool because they're the sponsor.
Yeah.
But now we're here, and you're doing software coaching also while we're connected, and so things have just worked out.
I love it. It's so random, but I'm so glad that you just happened to be there and we got talking.
Yeah, and so again, it says Software Accelerator Playbook down below you, and I gave your Instagram handle. I probably could put your website as well, but you're in software now. You're doing sort of software coaching. Update the viewers and listeners on sort of what you're doing and a little bit of background on you.
Yeah, so the main thing that I'm helping people with now is when they've got an app idea and they want to get into development, but they don't know how to do that, right? There's this whole kind of this black box of, how do I get this idea and get it detailed enough and clear enough so that the developers know what to build. So I'm helping people through that process. I've been doing apps for 8+ years, both web apps and then mobile apps. And then I've been doing website stuff for like 20+ years. So I've been in this world for a long time, and I've seen things done wrong. And I've heard a lot of horror stories too, where people are saying, I said to the developer, can you build this? And they said, yeah. And then I got back this thing that's 60% of what I wanted. And so then you have to pay more money. It's the hassle of going back and forth. And ultimately, the main thing is it becomes an expensive game of telephone. And so where I step in is to help clarify everything from the front end, help people get a lot of different quotes as opposed to just feeling stuck with one developer, and being able to really kind of communicate their needs to the development team and have more success, limit their failure in the process.
So you found that this was a big issue, and I guess a lot of people are spending high amounts of money paying someone that might not even do, I guess, what they needed, right? Because
there's
different ways to do things in software.
Yeah, I mean, developers that are not as good as what they do, they will gladly take your money without asking a bunch of questions. And that's difficult because there's so many small details in software, so many more than most people realize, that once you start peeling back the layers and you really get detailed on exactly what you need, there's a lot more questions that tend to pop up. But if you're playing at kind of a service level of like, hey, I just kind of want an app that like does this and this, then you're leaving a lot up to the developer to decide. And most often the vision in your head is not going to match the vision in the developer's head. So where that disconnect happens can then become very costly.
It's sort of like most creative, I guess, services, sort of like myself, in that we're trying to take what somebody has in their head and make it, and most 100%. Likely it's probably not going to be right the first time, and so we just give them a ton of different mock-ups and hope for the best.
Right, and you know this exactly, that when somebody says something to you and you're trying your best to kind of make the picture in your mind, even if you're trying your hardest, even if you're fully focused, there's still going to be a disconnect in what they had envisioned.
Wrong color, wrong placement, wrong, like, I guess, not rounded corners for UI, because that's popular now. Rounded corners, gradients, and shadows.
Yep.
Super big.
And people
There's a
might
lot
even
that
be
goes
asking
into it.
for
Yeah.
something that they don't even really want, or they think they want, but then when they see it, they're like, oh no. But yeah, I mean, being in any creative field, there's always going to be that kind of disconnect with vision. But the more you can clarify and really clean up that idea of like, what are you actually asking for, then you're going to have more success all the way down the line.
So that's what you're helping with coaching is clarifying idea, and that's what we did within like multiple sessions. We had multiple
Yeah.
sessions of that, just narrowing down, okay, what's the actual like consumer target, if it's B2B, B2C, and then I guess how you're going to build that. We went over, and I can vouch for this because we've had multiple different calls about a certain idea I had that's well, I guess I could say it's an ordering ahead. I guess more of a directory, an ordering ahead directory. So just
That's it.
links to different places to order ahead from. Basically, I just wanted a more conglomerate spot so I don't have 80 million apps on my phone of different ordering places. And I mean, I get rewards and I like that, but also I feel like I don't go there enough to actually need that. And I feel like
Right.
almost, I don't want to say like an overweight person having all of these different like fast food apps on my phone, but it definitely just I don't feel good about that. And so I wanted more of a common spot for everything, if at all
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah,
That's what
and
we've been building.
and when we started with it, going through, I remember at the very beginning, kind of talking through so that I could understand what vision was in your head. We talked through that user story of like, tell me from the beginning to the end the story of the person who's using this thing, having success along the way. And then we broke it down into all these different parts for, this has to happen first, and then the order has to go here, and this has to happen, all this stuff. And as we went through it, as we really fleshed it out and could take a good look at it, then other questions started popping up. So it was really good to kind of get everything down and out of your head into kind of a clear plan. And then
Mhm.
once we had that, we were able to then make decisions on it, which then became advantageous, as opposed to if I just said to you, if I was the developer and you were hiring me and I was like, sure, great, we'll build it. And then, you gave me the money and then you got it back. And then you're like, well, what about that part? And then I said,
Yeah.
well, you didn't tell me about that part. Like, you're not a good developer if you're just kind of making whatever the person tells you. You're a good developer when you help you make sure that you understand together, that your heads are together, that the vision is together, and not this segmented, separated thing where you're just, kind of getting 20% of it and then running down the road. You want to make sure that you're very clear. I
Mhm.
feel like that's a big part of what I do is just getting clear. It seems like an easy thing, but there's just a lot of detail to go through.
Yeah, we definitely went through a lot of issues that could have arose. More than anything, it was just integrating with other platforms.
Yeah.
And that's why we narrowed it down specifically. And really, I just wanted to make, I guess, be MVP. Um, and in software, that I'm minimum viable product is that the correct term for that?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Yeah, so I just wanted to make basically an MVP something that was super simple that people could understand, and then obviously like you can build it in the future to bigger things, and that's what a lot of people spend money on in software is just continually making things better and updates. Um,
Right, and that's another trick too, the idea of like, what are you asking for at first? And so the way that I like to describe that is, if you're going on a hike up a mountain, theoretically you could bring everything with you in your backpack that you would ever need, but then it's going to be a really, really tiring trip up the mountain. So you have to make choices for, what do I actually need? What's really important, but then not bringing too much. And it's the same thing with app development. If you try to build something too big at the beginning, everything takes way longer, everything's way more expensive, and you can't get to the point where you really need, which is getting in the hands of the people that are going to use it, getting
mhm.
feedback, actually being able to mold it. So playing a strategy game versus building everything and planning everything and building this monstrous thing versus how can we get to some kind of end point where then once we get there, we can kind of iterate again and again and make it a little bit better each time. That's a much better way of doing it than just trying to do everything at once. So there's strategy there as well for being lean at the beginning.
I think definitely getting into people's hands and people using it,
Yeah.
and I guess even their info is big, and that's why a lot of even like free apps and apps out there literally are profitable because of their large consumer base
Yeah.
of people who are using the app, and that's what people want to monetize later. But
Yeah.
first and foremost, it's just getting people to use it, getting their feedback on it.
Yeah,
and
and
then building
creating
from there.
something of value, creating value for the people that are using it. You know, so often I'm talking to people who are they're so focused on the technical part that they forget about the people part. It's like, hey, you know, do you have an email list? Do you have a social media following? Do you have are you, you know, how are you going to talk to these people? And a lot of the people I've talked to, they haven't even kind of crossed that bridge of like who, you know, who's going to be using it. But that's the
Mhm.
whole point. You're not building this thing so it can just be there. You're
Yeah.
building it so that lots of people can come use it. So if you're kind of if you have optics on that from the beginning and you're focused on, you know, trying to talk to people and getting conversations and really kind of you know, attract people as opposed to just building the thing in secret, you know, without telling anybody, which can be a recipe for disaster because then once you spend all this money and you finally unveil it to the world, then you realize there's crickets and nobody's listening. And then you go, oh no, I spent all this money and now nobody's in my app. So then you have another problem to solve.
I feel like I was the other way around. So it's like I
Oh,
wanted
tell
to
me.
build this app just because I'm like I want the ability to have. Well, originally we completely shifted ideas too. So when you use
Yeah.
texting as the sales channel basically, and the whole idea was like I want to put the words text this number, text order to this number on a
Mm-hmm.
billboard because I think that's a lot. It's really good for a billboard because it's limited information. It's not like a whole paragraph you're reading and like I
Right.
can't read this going 60 miles per hour
Uh-huh.
driving past.
Yeah.
But I wanted to build the idea based on I wanted to get a billboard. But yeah, so we're
Well,
definitely
and the
getting
thing
it
is, I
done.
mean, your head is so much in the marketing game
Uh,
that you live and breathe the idea of like, how do I get people to pay attention? How do I get people in? Which is wonderful. That's a huge asset that you have kind of walking into a project like that. A lot of the people that are trying to build apps don't necessarily have those marketing chops. So they
mhm.
just don't even think about it. They just think like, oh, I got a cool app idea. Let's
Mhm.
build it. And they're
Which is good. I mean, it could be based on a problem too. A lot of people. I mean,
true.
that's mainly why people would build businesses, right? It's because it's based
Yeah.
on a problem, and so that's probably why people want to do the software, whether they know it or not. And
Right.
I'm the person, and that's a good segue. Is like non-technical foundering is getting
Yeah.
bigger and bigger because some people have these big ideas and they're like, I don't know how to do anything. And that's why Bubble. So I'm building my stuff on Bubble, and uh,
There's
we've
a
been
Dalo as well.
figuring it out while we go.
Yeah.
But it's definitely an easy. We've found out it's an easy software to use. That's for non-tech founders. Um, but there's
Yeah. No
definitely
code.
plenty out there too.
Yeah, and no code tools are you
Mm-hmm.
know, basically breaking the entire development space, whereas before you had to do this whole, you know, and only talk to developers that they're all in code. Now it's
Hire someone,
accessible.
pay $50,000 in
Yeah.
salary, do this.
Yeah, in the
Now it's
same
just
way
like,
that like Squarespace and Wix, you know, broke the website space where you know you had to hire somebody to code all that stuff. Now you just pull stuff in, drag and drop, and you're good to go. And that so now that's happening with apps, and it's completely changing everything. And it's changing the speed to getting a product in somebody's hands. That instead of that longer cycle, people can just iterate really quickly and make something, you know, in a day, in 2 days, and get it
mhm.
up and running.
Is there still an ability to create like really, really tough things within software? I mean, I don't know what's tough in the software world, but are these no code platforms being able to do certain things that uh, you would only think that coding could do beforehand?
Yes and no. And the truth of it
Okay.
is, I haven't dug too deep with no code tools, but I've seen a lot of different plugins that are created on top of Bubble. So Bubble will
Mhm.
have, you know, have this functionality where they can kind of send data in and out, and then somebody will build a plugin like a
So like
charting plugin, graphing.
zapping things back and forth too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. You know, integrates with the way the bubble works, but then it adds this extra functionality. So, you know, if you're lucky enough to have somebody who's already kind of created the thing that you want, then you just click a button and zoop, now it's in your product. The thing with custom development is everything is malleable because you can literally go into the line of code and pluck it out and take this and move it over there. So for me
Mhm.
personally, because I'm a developer, when I develop, I just go straight into code because I know that I
Mhm.
can manipulate anything and do basically anything that I want, super custom. But as far as a non-technical founder who would never be able to do that because they don't know how to code, Bubble is amazing for being able to just build something really functional, really wonderful. And certainly there's limits, and you know, Bubble. I've also heard for Bubble too that like if sites get really, really big, they can get slow, and certain things there where, you can't control the server as much.
Like tons of different plugins on it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's with a lot of even like websites too, like
100%.
Shopify. Like if you add
Yeah.
a billion apps to your website, it's going to slow down.
100%. You'll log into a website.
So much code.
You'll log into a website that somebody who's non-technical is managing, and they have like 40 different plugins that maybe not all are needed, but they don't realize how much it's slowing down the progress. But at the same time, it's giving them access to be able to manipulate the data. So it's kind of that give and take of like, it's going to be a little bit slower, but I get the ability to change whatever I want. Okay, I'm not worried it's a little bit slow. Same thing with Bubble, that speed to development is unreal compared to custom development. But then, once you get going, if you get a lot of users and if you want to have more custom control, probably now you're going to have to migrate. Yeah, I'm not sure because I can't speak from experience. I've just heard and seen things written on forums and people talking about slowdowns with Bubble. And I'm sure they're also, upgrading their infrastructure. But the speed to development is the special sauce that you just snap your fingers and you're good to go. And you can't get that with custom development, nowhere close. It just takes time if you're coding something.
And it's definitely still a newer part of software dev. I see a lot of people who just use Bubble and these no code softwares to just replicate other sites right now, which is good, but it's going to be good in the future too, to see like the extensive and also fast things that people can do within the future. So it's definitely something that's newer, but we're still seeing the effects of it.
Yeah, imagine if the no code stuff is old now. Imagine that we're 5 or 10 years ahead, and Bubble is like this old sort of like, oh my gosh, like people are going to be able to make apps for their phone by snapping their finger. I mean, and then I guess other platforms like Adalo are doing that too, not just the
voice
web app side, but like mobile app side, where I can't even imagine what my kids' will be doing when it comes to like making apps or making websites. Like
hey Alexa.
They'll probably just tell an AI like, hey, like I kind of want a website to sell. I'm selling this thing. Like, can you make something? And then the AI will just be like,
oh yeah, it would be like, hey Alexa, can you make me a website similar to this?
Yeah.
But with my colors, because they already know your colors, and then blah blah blah. It's like 100%. Everything's voice. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
We're not there yet, but we keep saying everything's gonna be crazy. We need Gary Vee in here making statements and predictions.
Yeah.
He's usually pretty right. But now the whole space is in NFTs.
Web 3.0, which is a whole new like, what even is this new world? Like, if the internet was everything, the internet broke everything open. This is like another layer of just what is this new world? I can't even imagine. So much new stuff coming out the pipeline. Oh, I think you froze.
Yeah. Sorry for anything that cut out right there. My internet's being
good.
A little weird. Yeah, I'm still working on the whole internet thing. Live streaming and having different people in the office definitely slows it down a little bit.
Yeah.
I was worried my computer is honestly going to crash. It's we're going to steal the heat off of it. So I need to get some new gear. If everyone wants to
you gotta close all your 40,000 tabs you have.
Oh, they're all closed. I hard reset the computer, and this is the only new tab I have open right now. And then I'm gonna restore all the pages after this is done. That's typically what I do. Make sure Premiere Pro and Spotify and all aren't running. But I definitely want people to subscribe, donate. If any sponsors, I need like a good coffee sponsorship. Honestly,
yeah,
that'd be sweet. But that's future stuff. Any donation does definitely go back to the podcast, though, getting new equipment, and just making it look bigger and better. All the marketing I'm doing right now is all organic. So I'm doing all the reposting the things and remaking things into TikToks and all. And I guess all my competition, their episodes are like 500th episode, or or they're doing paid advertising for their podcast, and I'm just not doing that quite yet. But we're getting there.
You'll get there.
Yeah. But back to no code. So yeah, we're just making claims again about the future, and Gary Vee is doing a lot about NFTs right now, which is a cool space because of the underlying contracts behind that. But I guess the coding is hard because it's another language, right? And so it's hard for people to understand and write different stuff. And then I guess there's different parts of coding too. There's, I guess, CSS and
Yeah, so I mean,
HTML and
in terms of like, peeling back,
JavaScript.
yeah, in terms of like peeling back layers in code in general, it's learning a language. It's learning, how to do this and how to do that. If you want to print something to the screen, you have to use a certain word. If you want to have something loop in a circle and spit out one thing at a time, you have to say that, and you have to type that in a certain way so that it knows what to do. So, at the beginning of learning coding, it's just like learning a new language. You're like, well, I know what I want to do, but like, how do I do it? And so it's a lot of going and getting information, going and finding, how things are done. And then after a while, you kind of get in the flow of just kind of knowing how things are done, or at least knowing what you should be searching for in order to make it happen. But with no code, you don't have to do any of that. You're clicking buttons and you're using it, just like Squarespace, drag and drop, and you're good to go. But it's like a fully functional app. So, it's an interesting thing for me to see, because I'm a developer. So right now it actually is easier for me to just launch a site by doing everything the way that I've done it, because I have a really fast way of doing it. But anybody who's non-technical, they just have to spend, I've spent years and years learning this language, or learning multiple languages really. Like you said, CSS, that's all like how stuff looks. So, if you start with a really boring button, then you change the background color and this padding and the size and the rounded edges and all that stuff you can kind of inject into the page. But and then there's also kind of like behind the scenes, like the server language, where if you like click a button and send a form, that goes to the back end, and it's saving stuff to the database, it's getting stuff from the database, it's doing all those calculations on a computer way over there. Websites are just running on servers, which are just computers just connected to the internet. So, you're sending your information in, and then it's doing calculations and then sending things back to you to display on the screen.
Yeah, and obviously it is again language. You gotta learn the different things to say to make things do different things, and but also just I guess using no code and figuring out how other programs work is also, people have a learning gap there too, and be like, okay, like for us using Bubble.
Right.
So we're gonna go in and be like, okay, we have to do this new data entry. We had to zoom out to 100% to find our data. That was wild.
Wait, say that again?
Remember we had to zoom out to 100%.
Oh yeah, that was just a glitch with Bubble, where it wasn't showing something on the screen until you changed the size of your display.
Yeah, my display was like 80% or something.
Yeah.
And then I have to change it to 100% just to see my data, which was like a weird thing. But
that brings me think of something that's really important for anybody who's kind of thinking of apps, whether no code or custom development or anything. You have to have a good testing framework. So, this issue that we're talking about in Bubble was basically, if the screen was this small, it wouldn't show something, but then he made the screen bigger, and then all of a sudden something just popped on the screen. That, Bubble is missing out on that right now. Bubble doesn't have testers that are looking at that page, that are finding that issue, that then are reporting back and going, guys, we got to fix this. This is confusing for people. So if you do want to make a software, whether no code or wherever else, make sure that you have other people helping you test, have other people use it before you have the customers use it. Because what happens if customers are using something that's broken, they'll play with it for a second and then they'll just bail because it doesn't work. And very few of them will actually tell you what's going on. So make sure you have good people that are helping you test and try different things, so you can catch those errors and catch those glitches before somebody else does.
Making things responsive, basically. I know a lot of people who make literally websites mobile first now.
You have to. It's like I think it's a bigger percentage now that are coming from their phone versus desktop, for sure.
So that vertical layout, I don't know if I was seen, but I don't have Bubble on my phone, but I don't know if they wouldn't have the data be able to be seen on mobile. But again,
it would have to be a completely different structure. Yeah, it'd have to be a different layout. They'd have to think about it in terms of, this size box versus this, for sure.
Yeah, but I want to get into a little bit about startups too. So most big startups right now that we see that grow really rapidly and get great, funding are a lot of SaaS products. So a lot of software as a service, SaaS products. Why do you think those are popping off so much versus other things? Do you think it's just because we're being we're getting more technical and things are updating so quickly. Do you think they're going to level out at any point? Do you have any ideas basically on software as a service in the startup space?
That's an interesting question. I don't know exactly why, like I don't have data on like exactly what's
Yeah.
being funded or what percentage, but the idea of somebody who, has a community, they have a need, they don't have, highly refined software for it to fill that specific need. So there's all these different, kind of in the same way that like Uber happened, and then like this Uberification of like all these different services just
Mhm.
happened. Like, and
Yeah,
there's still room now.
they
What's that?
manage drivers without actual, or they have they're a car company, but actually don't have car, like a taxi company, but they don't have taxis. Or like
Yeah.
Airbnb, the housing, they're the real estate company that doesn't have any houses.
Yeah, so like even that, I mean, there's SaaS, software as a service is kind of this wide ranging thing, and then like the Uber and like the Uberification of services is like kind of one small segment. But I just feel like there's so much room for making a tool that people can use, and everybody, everybody's on their phone now, everybody's using apps, and so the market is just through the roof, and so now you can create a software that's just kind of within one specific niche and then still get a ton of users and be able to have decent cash flow in order to make that happen. Now it's hard to get those users. You need to have both the technical skill and the marketing skill. But if a unicorn or somebody who's a venture capitalist wants to throw 10, 20, 40, $50,000 at something and then can just blow that up, that's what they're thinking, that if you build a SaaS product within a specific niche, that they'll be able to really rev that up really well. And I'm imagining too that the venture capitalists have their own system of marketing, have their own system of in their own kind of pieces that they can plug in. If somebody comes in with an app idea and they're kind of working to build this thing, that the venture capitalist already has a marketing team and already has a legal team and already has this way where they can
Even
snap
venture capitalists down and they're like, we only do scientific research companies, or they
yeah
only do certain companies. So they
they've
even
come
have
up
their
with their
own.
own flow for like, this is what I want to invest in and this is what I can really give a turbo boost to, or a jump start. And yeah, and so I've seen a ton of people with pitch decks, and they're trying to clarify the size of the market, and they want to get funding, and they want to get through different series and move forward to get funding.
I think
That's
it's the ability for them to create really, really like niche down softwares because of these like no code things, and it's getting easier and easier to create these. For people
right.
to create something that's specifically for a realtor who's literally 25 years old who lives in this place that can make literally a
Right.
software just for you, and then
Right, and
target
they,
you
and
and
make
market.
it profitable too. That like back in the day, that might be very hard to get that niche, but now the way to do it is to be niche. That if you're not niche, it's really really difficult. The phrase like trying to boil the ocean, like you can't do it. It's going to take too much resource in order to do that. So if you really focus on a smaller and smaller pot of water, you can boil
Mhm.
that for sure. And then but yeah.
And it's really easy to create passive income too. So people can literally just charge like 9, 10, 20, whatever a month and make plenty of money.
Yeah, yeah. The difficulty there is, I mean, passive is interesting because there's nothing that's truly passive, or at least, in my experience, there's nothing that where you can just set it and then like literally never do anything else.
Yeah.
Software breaks, software gets updated, glitches are found,
You
customers
want to
want
hire?
something
I mean, like
new.
I just saw the Canva just got a new funding for now. They're in a $48 billion evaluation. They're like the
Wow,
fifth biggest startup in the world now. Um,
wow,
with the 16.9 million users across 19 different countries.
unreal.
Um, if everyone's paying the 12 or whatnot more a month, because Salesforce and different big companies use enterprise solutions too.
Right.
But if everyone's paying that $12 a month, like that's a lot of money coming
Mhm.
in. But they're using that new funding. They're using that the money to hire. They're trying to double their employees.
Yeah, and the thing that's so wonderful with SaaS companies is if you've built the thing and you get an extra 100 users, you don't really have to do much more work to get those 100 or even 1,000. So the scalability for software is unreal. Now you'll have to upgrade your infrastructure to be able to support more, past a certain point. But the idea is that like you do the main work building the thing that's functional, and then if you just add 10,000 more people to it, it's not like you have to do, if you're doing a one-on-one business and you get 10,000 more customers, forget it. You're out of time. You're done. But with a SaaS company, it's so possible to do those kinds of scalable activities because you can support it, as opposed to, because the time it takes to add an additional customer is almost nothing, or maybe literally nothing. They can check out themselves. They can give you money and they can just get access. And at that point, you're just selling usernames and passwords, and that's a pretty solid business if you can get it going. Now there's caveats.
Or not. There's a lot of policies out there that are stopping that now. People don't want to policy changes, and people want to protect their info now.
Apple just made a big change. Well, they're giving up as little as they possibly can, but Apple is making a change to allow people to charge differently in their apps, whereas Apple wanted full control of, if you're going to charge money in your app, then basically they're saying you need to give us money. But so that kind of just came down the pipeline where they're allowing people to start doing that. And
they're monetizing privacy, so like you can pay different amounts to have your stuff protected or not, kind of thing.
I didn't hear about that.
Okay.
Although I wouldn't be surprised if Apple has its own like ads product soon.
Like $1.99 a month for you letting people have your info, or $20 a month for not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, data is money for sure. So there's a lot of, that's why there's free apps that are available, because you use the free app and you are the product, which is, that's how Google works essentially. But I just saw too that Apple blocked an app from displaying an NFT that was purchased somewhere else. So Apple is trying to control all digital assets within an app. They want a percentage of every single digital asset. So I'm curious what's going to happen now that there's this whole new world of digital assets within NFTs and blockchain and everything. That, I feel like the dam's going to burst eventually, and Apple's going to have to let that kind of thing slide. But the way that we show off digital assets in the world is certainly coming to apps. So I'm not sure how Apple's going to deal with that. I don't know where I got on track with that, but it's just interesting. Everything's changed. Every year there's something new that just kind of breaks the system, and then we move in a new direction.
Yeah, it used to be for marketers, the iOS 14 update.
Yeah.
And the new pop-ups that come up and be like, hey, we're going to use your info. Do you want to accept or not? I always accept, but I know some people probably won't. But now they got hacked the other day or something, and so they had a mandatory Apple
got hacked the other day.
Yeah. Like there's a new update that's a mandatory update because of like some security breach or something. I saw it on the news, but I'm like, oh, great. But
yep.
But yeah, so they're trying to basically control info, which is very typical for, I guess, a lot of bigger companies right now that we're seeing.
They can monetize. They can monetize that because they can aggregate it and put AI on top of it and be able to sell us what we don't even know we want by doing those calculations, by giving us the right ads and the right
in-app purchases, ads, whatnot. They're making money. Like that's how Facebook makes all of its money, is them tools for marketing. But it's all an ad spend.
Yeah, they have the eyeballs.
Mentioning, you said 2 different, I guess, companies or apps that you said. Are there any other like startups that you've sort of, I guess, researched software wise that you're paying attention to right now, or that you think we should pay attention to?
Well, you were mentioning Canva. There's a software called Kapwing or Kapwing.
Kapwing, yep.
Yeah, Kapwing. I guess it's kind of like, it's supposed to be the sound like something like bouncing, like Kapwing.
I actually have used them. And so I use them for captioning software.
Yeah, caption software, like video editing in the cloud ultimately. But software like that, I feel like it's amazing. I was trying to build something, kind of a very small version of that, where it would put subtitles on top of video. But companies like that get an early start, get funded, are able to develop super fast. They're able to give their product away for free. They have a really good system of like, all you do is need to sign in, and then you can get the watermark to go away. Things like that, where it's like you don't even need to pay, but you do need to give us your email address. And then at that point, then their user base grows like crazy. And then just like you're saying with Canva, if it's such a huge company and they're charging people, $9 or $12, which is almost negligible for the person.
That's what they're using the new funding to, is they're trying to get into. So they've gone into obviously like social media posting, scheduling, and content and all. I use Canva a lot, so that's why I'm big on this right now. But they said they're getting into website, and I know you can do like Linktree websites with them too now. But also they're trying to get into They're trying to get into video, so they actually literally might do the things that Kapwing is doing and try to do those like meme and header style videos, social media kind of videos. things that honestly might even jump into the short form video space and try to do stuff that's like reels and TikToks and all.
I know they already have like a video. I think they already have a video tool within Canva that's decent.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean that everybody needs help making those kinds of things. Everybody wants to be able to make that stuff faster, and
Oh yeah,
marketers.
it took me an hour yesterday just to do captioning for a minute long reel that I
Yeah,
posted. It has like 6K views or something right now for another business I manage. But
there's another software too that does that really well. It's called Descript,
mhm.
and I love it actually. So I don't really use Kapwing, but Descript is amazing. Where it basically you upload the video, it transcribes it, and then you can delete out words. So if you say
Mhm.
throughout your entire thing, you just delete you
Yeah.
delete just like editing a Word document, and it edits the video down. So as
Mhm.
opposed to video editing where you're trying to drag everything in Premiere Pro and then fade everything,
Yeah.
you literally just take out a piece of text and it's done.
Well,
So that kind of tech is
Kapwing or Kapwing would give you an SRT file for captioning because I
mm,
used to use them, but it was like again it was like $20 or $30 a month, and I'm like I still have to edit these captions anyway.
right.
I don't know if I want to even spend that because I don't even have time anymore. I used to do them for my clips of the podcast and put them on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
But like with the amount of clients I have, I don't even have time to edit my own videos. I need
Well,
to.
and now Instagram I know is already like they're adding Instagram and TikTok have a captioning feature
Mhm.
now just built in, which is
Yeah.
pretty good already. So it's like even that is just saving people time again and again. Just I feel like all the big companies are just looking at how can we shave off 10 seconds or 30 seconds of somebody's creation time, and then
Well, I mean,
everybody's
for
going
video
to
editing, it's like hours.
yeah, yeah, unreal.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But so Cupwing, is that really the only thing that I want more business? I want you to name drop more businesses if you
Well, so
can.
what's the question exactly? Like
Do you, are
companies
you
that
do you see any startups in the news that you think will pop off? You being the software guy and now software coach. Are
I
you
don't have like a specific I don't have like a specific kind of
or are you
list of
friends with
things
any
that I think are going to
entrepreneurs
be
that you like their
amazing.
ideas?
I think that the main overall thing that I see is that even companies that seem like super niche can really dig in and make a lot of money and get a lot of customers. Kind of in the way that we're talking about, nichification, or people are getting like really, really specific with the type of tool that they're building. Like there's room for those types of things. And before I didn't really consider that or think about that, but now people can come up with this thing in this tiny little niche and be able to scale it to a place that I never thought was possible. So it's like when you're saying like, what's going to pop off, like way my answer to that is way more companies than I would have ever thought could even do it are doing it and getting funding and getting customers and helping people. So it's like almost it's like this endless list of niched out SaaS companies. I'm in a few Facebook groups and Slack channels and stuff with SaaS companies, and it feels like every time I turn around there's just another like, hey, we're doing it this way, or hey, we're doing it that way, or like there's the copywriting AI services now, like
Oh yeah, copy.
copy.ai.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, like those. There's a ton of companies now that are doing that, specific thing. And then there's the companies that are doing like the fake talking, like adding an over, like you just like type a message and then it has a voice speak it
Voice to
into your
text.
audio,
Yep, that's TikTok's into that too.
or not voice to text, text to voice.
Okay. A
So, oh
text
yeah,
to
yeah,
voice. Yep.
TikTok
Yeah,
has that overlay.
that
Exactly.
text to speech. That's what
It's
it's
like
called. Yep.
it's like that whole. So then there's like a million companies just within that one space that are succeeding because it's just the technology is there and everybody's running for it. So it's like it's not like that. Like in my mind, it's not like there's one company that's just killing it. It's like there's so much room for so many companies to kill it, and I feel like that's what I'm kind of surprised by. And I never thought that it was possible. But the world's huge. The internet's growing like crazy. Everybody's got a phone and everybody wants to do stuff faster. So there's just room for creating value for people all over the
Hmm.
place.
Cool. What advice or tips can you give to people, I guess, in my shoes, who are maybe learning software or maybe want to be a non-tech founder and they have this idea, obviously to work with you. It's it's
Thank you.
a big good tip right there.
Appreciate it.
Do you have any other things that they can learn? Maybe using the academies in these no code websites, or
I think it comes down to the idea of like what's actually being built. I think that from the people that I talk to, where as soon as they start explaining the idea, I feel like I can just see it being a really, really hard, tough climb to the top of a mountain, versus people who, they already have an existing business and they can they can build a software that helps them just be more efficient, or they have a certain list of people that have a certain, certain problem, or it's kind of, they're already in a certain niche, and then they can build the software for those people. In my mind, as I'm thinking through my own projects and what I want to invest my time in building, it comes down to, how do I get access to the people? How do I get in touch with the people? How costly is it going to be to get the attention of these people? And then how much value can I bring them? So for instance, I have a photo booth software. It's like an add-on software where it allows the photo to be shared to the cloud, and then somebody can just like hop out of the photo booth and type in a code and like see their image. So like that kind of software, it's almost like a nice to have. And so it's making a little bit of money, not a ton, but it's almost like a nice to have. Like the problem that I'm solving isn't like this, like, oh, I have to fit, like a photo booth that like could either share a photo that night or like give the photo to the person like the next day. It's not like something where they're like, I have to do this. But but think
Like
about
what
it.
David Dobrik's Dispo, he made a whole software that's like a disposable camera, and you take a picture on their phone, and then it takes a whole like day to
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
render.
Yeah. So like that kind of issue that's being solved isn't this like world changing thing. It's not really getting rid of a big pain. But if you're building something in like the Facebook ad space, or you're building something that is like, that people are like super, super annoyed with, that they hate, that they just want to figure out a better way. If you can find a big problem, if you can find a big thorn in somebody's side and take that thorn away, that is key. Not just like, hey, cool, I have an idea, like this is going to be fun. I was talking to somebody who was thinking about an idea for like organizing clothing. And when we got talking about it more, it basically came down to the idea of like, this is going to be a lot of work for the user to do in order to like have success with this thing. Like for the user to just get anything out of it, the user is going to have to do a ton of work, and people don't like to do work. So you have to find a problem that is so big that the person, when they look at that problem, they just go, I need that software because I don't want to deal with that problem, because they've got this kind of internal, this tense internal frustration. So think about captioning, right? So subtitling, before, softwares that could just get it transcribed automatically and then just put it in the video. You had to type it all out. You had to make separate frames on Premiere. You had to that just took forever. And then finally the company's like, oh, we can just transcribe it, use audio to text, and then bring it in, and blah blah blah. So like people who had to subtitle were just like, there's no way I'm doing it the old way. I'm only doing it this way now. And so if you want to build, so kind of like the overall kind of tip is, look for a big problem and make sure that you can contact the people that have that big problem efficiently. Make sure that you have a way of finding them, interacting with them. And even if you don't have money to jump into development, if you just start creating content around that problem, kind of being the perfect flower that attracts,
building in public a little bit, kind of
building in public a little bit, but doing something that will attract those type of people to you, become a magnet. Then it becomes way easier to build. You could even at that point do crowdsourcing, where let's say you have 1,000 people that they're all plumbers and they all have an issue with billing, and you build this like plumber billing software. Like, who are you going to sell it to? You're going to sell it to all the people that are over here. It's like you have this like group over here of people that are like ready and waiting, and then you've got this idea, and all you got to do is just like go boop. But if you don't have those people ready and waiting, that even if you knock it out of the park with your software, then you're stuck just going, where do I put this? Who do I give it to? You can't even give it away.
You're spending more marketing on testing versus making content and making that organic first and foremost.
Yeah. And I learned that lesson. I learned that lesson the hard way when I was building a subtitling software where I figured out a way to get audio. You'd upload a video, it'd rip off the audio, it'd send it to a transcription service, it'd get the text back, you could fix your text, then it would burn it on top of the video. I had a working product that did this. And when I finished it, I then started trying to market it, trying to talk to people. Hey, I've got this free thing. Can you try it? Hey, it's free. Can you start it? And that, even when I'm giving it away for free, it was really hard to get people to get into it and start using it.
Yeah.
So I learned that lesson really well there, that it's about making sure you solve a big problem, but also that you can contact the people that want that solution.
Well, cool. That's all I got. If you want to do a little call to action, obviously people can find you on LinkedIn with the link I have below. Your website would be saplaybook.com.
That's it. Yeah. saplaybook.com. And then on Instagram at saplaybook. So
the first time I read that, I was like, "Supply." I put it all as one word, and I'm like, "This is an interesting name for it." I didn't figure out that it was like software accelerator was an abbreviation.
Yeah, I figured if I did, I think I also do have softwareacceleratorplaybook.com, but I want to be nice to the people that are coming my way and not force them to type everything out.
Yeah, but you don't have SAP because that's actually a huge company.
Oh yeah.
But but I was like, Supply. This is an interesting name for
Playbook. Yeah.
Like such an interesting name for a website, but okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why it took me this long to figure that out, but cool. Definitely reach out to Eddie if you have any software coding questions. Again, we have some knowledge of no code, but it's definitely still a newer thing, and we're both still learning about that. But now you're getting into coaching, and so if you're a non-technical founder like myself, definitely reach out to him. I'm being his, I guess, guinea pig at the moment, getting him some good content to produce and getting him some testimonials. So this is one just alone already has definitely used him. He's definitely has knowledge in the space, and it'll definitely help you consolidate that idea to shift and pivot to at least get that MVP and find the users, because that seems like it's mostly the first part that people want to focus on is find users and find out how to market to those users first and foremost.
Yeah, and really helping people just get clear on an idea and get it ready for development in a document that developers can really understand. Oh, that's exactly what you need. That's kind of my main zone of genius, is helping really take ideas and clarify them and walk people into development.
Basically, like doing bookkeeping before you talk to an accountant, or the CPA. So like bookkeeping to make sure get your mileage done, expenses done.
Yeah, I mean,
revenue,
in a way, I don't know if I want to compare it to bookkeeping, because I actually hate doing bookkeeping. So it sounds like really arduous. It's more of a fun process.
It just seems like an easier step to give someone else. It's like you're giving them
you're kind of dumping out your vision, clarifying what you want. And then I put it through my own filters of everything I've learned in the past, 8 years building apps to try to make sure that you're heading the right direction. That's kind of the main thing.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for listening to the Process Over Profit podcast. Again, thank you, Eddie, for joining. And I know it was super last minute, but I'm glad we can. I knew it was going to be super good, and we were going to talk for a solid hour. But yeah, it's always fun talking with you, and I knew it was going to be super casual and also high energy. So I hope you all enjoyed listening. And
love it, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Episode 27 done. On a road to thousands more.
Do it. Love it, bro.